I always thought I had it figured out, the job, the marriage, the whole package. Isabella was this force of nature that swept into my life 8 years ago, turning my structured world upside down in the best possible way. Those first few years, pure electricity. The way she'd surprise me after a long shift, that mischievous glint in her eyes when she'd pull me into the bedroom. Man, we could barely keep our hands off each other. Working the beat meant crazy hours, but I made it work. She'd stir awake, flash that smile that still makes my heart skip, and we'd just talk until sunrise. Those moments, just us against the world, made everything worthwhile. I remember this one night, about 2 years in, when she brought up trying some wilder stuff in bed. Something about roleplay and toys, things that made me a bit uncomfortable. I'd seen enough darkness on the job. Home was supposed to be my sanctuary. We talked it out like adults, found middle ground. She seemed okay with it, and life went on. The station guys would joke about their marriage troubles, but I'd just shake my head. Isabella and I, we were different. Sure, she was all passion and impulse while I played it steady, but that's what made us work. She'd drag me to salsa classes. I'd teach her to shoot at the range. Perfect balance. Between the overtime and her marketing career, we carved out our routine. Sunday brunches at her parents', monthly date nights, summer barbecues with the neighbors. Looking back, maybe it was too perfect, too neat. But when you're living it, when you think you've hit the relationship jackpot, you don't go looking for cracks in the foundation. I first noticed something was off one Tuesday evening after getting home from my shift. The house was quiet. Isabella was still at work, but there was this smell. Not the usual musty odor of a closed-up house, but something more sinister. Following my nose led me to our laundry room. The stench hit me full force when I opened the washing machine lid. It was rank, like rotting vegetation mixed with sewage. My first thought was maybe a small animal had somehow gotten trapped inside, but the drum was empty. I grabbed the cleaning supplies from under the sink and got to work. Scrubbed every inch of that machine, ran it empty with bleach, then vinegar, then both. The smell wouldn't budge. If anything, it seemed to get stronger over the next few days, especially when Isabella's gym clothes and work outfits went through. "Hey babe, you notice anything weird about the laundry?" I asked over dinner one night, trying to keep my tone casual. Isabella barely glanced up from her phone. "Like what?" "There's this smell. Can't seem to get rid of it." She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, that. Probably just the old pipes acting up again. This house is ancient." But our house wasn't that old, and I'd dealt with sewage issues before. This was different. The odor clung specifically to her clothes, while mine came out fine. I ran tests, separate loads, different detergents, varying temperatures. The result was always the same. I even crawled behind the machine one weekend, checking every connection and hose. Everything looked normal, but that smell, it nagged at me. Not just because it was unpleasant, but because Isabella's complete lack of concern felt wrong. She was usually the first to complain about any household issues. After 2 weeks of failed troubleshooting, I started pricing new washing machines. But something in my gut kept telling me this wasn't a simple appliance problem. The first time Isabella mentioned George, I didn't really think much of it. It was natural for her to talk about coworkers, especially when her workload picked up. She'd always been passionate about her job, chasing deadlines and projects like something could slip away at any second if she didn't. Made sense, right? But then, after a while, his name kept slipping into conversations. Little things. How George helped her with a client presentation. How George had great ideas about modern marketing techniques. How George stayed late too, which made her office feel less empty. Still, I brushed it off. Hell, she was stressed. Her whole team had been stretched thin. And I knew what long hours felt like. Back when I was working the streets late at night, she complained about how much she missed me. So this time I didn't want to be that husband who nagged about her coming home late. But things did change. It was hard to ignore, even though I kept trying to. Isabella grew more and more distant. It wasn't just the late work nights. She mumbled something about a team-building event the first time I asked. I left it at that. Then she started staying up in the living room until the small hours, saying she had emails to finish or slides to tweak, but it felt like she was avoiding me more than her to-do list. And what bothered me most? The silence. We used to talk. We used to talk about everything, even the little stuff. Now, her words were always short, as if she only answered questions out of some obligatory politeness. Conversations felt forced, stilted, a far cry from our easy flow. It didn't help that she seemed irritated by everything. Like any small thing I did was a ticking bomb, ready to set off a snap in her voice. Going to the gym. Why do you need to hit the weights so much? Can't you relax for once? Washing the dishes. Why are you making so much noise? It reached a point where I was questioning my own movements, mentally rehearsing before doing even the most mundane tasks like cracking an egg. And when I tried to be close, whether it was just cuddling on the couch or even suggesting something a little more intimate, her responses were ice cold, dismissive. It wasn't like her. That passion we had, the physical connection we used to joke could ignite a room, gone. Like she could barely be bothered to even acknowledge it used to exist. It was baffling and frustrating at first, but the more I saw her pull away, the more something gnawed at the edges of my mind. The signs were becoming harder to ignore. Every day brought new oddities that my detective instincts couldn't overlook. Isabella's routine had shifted dramatically over the past month. She'd rush straight to the shower the moment she got home, sometimes twice a day. The bathroom would fill with steam, and she'd emerge pink-skinned like she'd been scrubbing herself raw. That damn smell from the washing machine followed me everywhere now. I found it on her blouses stuffed at the bottom of the hamper, on discarded pantyhose hidden under other clothes. The scent wasn't just unpleasant, it was distinctive. Something about it nagged at my subconscious, like a case detail I couldn't quite place. Last Tuesday, I picked up her dry cleaning and caught a whiff of it again. The clothes were freshly pressed, but underneath the chemical cleaning smell, that same odor lingered. Isabella had never used this much dry cleaning before. 3 or 4 items every few days now, when she used to go months between visits. During breakfast, she'd tap away at her phone, barely looking up. George's name kept popping up in her stories about work. George suggested this marketing strategy. George brought donuts for the team. George stayed late to help with the presentation. Each mention made my stomach knot tighter. I tried to focus on paperwork at the precinct, but my mind kept circling back. Maybe the washing machine really was broken. Maybe she'd switched perfumes. Maybe George was just a friendly coworker. 15 years on the force had taught me to trust my gut. But this was different. This was Isabella. My partner noticed me zoning out during briefing and asked if everything was okay. I brushed it off, buried myself in case files instead. There had to be a logical explanation. I was just being paranoid, letting my cop brain see connections that weren't there. Isabella loved me. We had built a life together. But that smell, that damn smell wouldn't let me rest. After weeks of dealing with that persistent odor, I finally broke down and bought a new washing machine. The delivery guys hauled away our old one, and I spent my afternoon carefully installing the new model, a sleek, high-efficiency unit that cost more than I'd planned to spend. But at that point, I just wanted the problem solved. The first load came out smelling fresh and clean. No trace of that odd, musky scent that had been haunting our laundry. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, even though a nagging voice in the back of my mind whispered that the washing machine might not have been the real problem all along. I tried to use this fresh start as an opportunity to reconnect with Isabella. On my day off, I suggested we could try that new Italian place downtown she'd mentioned wanting to check out. She barely looked up from her phone, mumbling something about being swamped with work projects. The next weekend, I stocked up on ingredients to make her favorite paella, a recipe I'd learned from her mother years ago. The old Isabella would have been hovering in the kitchen, sneaking tastes and playfully critiquing my technique. This time, she came home late, said she'd already grabbed dinner with colleagues, and disappeared upstairs to shower. The new washing machine worked perfectly, but our home felt emptier than ever. The clean laundry mocked me from its neatly folded piles. I'd fixed the wrong problem, and I knew it. But every time I tried to reach out, to bridge the growing gap between us, Isabella pulled further away. She was physically present, but somewhere else entirely in her mind. I kept my mouth shut, swallowing the questions that burned in my throat. Years of police work had taught me to trust my instincts, but in my own home, I second-guessed every suspicion, every observation. The last thing I wanted was to create conflict over what might just be a rough patch in our marriage. One day I came home early from my night shift, exhausted but needing to rest before a major drug bust operation tomorrow. The house was quiet, too quiet. Then I heard Isabella's voice from upstairs, speaking in hushed tones. My feet moved on instinct. 15 years of police work taught me to move silently. I crept up the stairs, staying close to the wall where the boards wouldn't creak. Isabella's voice grew clearer with each step. "You're terrible, George." Her laugh, that soft, breathy laugh she used to say for me. "No, I can't tonight. Mark's supposed to be home soon." My stomach clenched. I pressed my back against the wall outside our bedroom door, listening to my wife talk to another man. "That dinner last week was amazing. The way Isabella's voice dropped even lower. God, I can't stop thinking about it." Blood rushed in my ears. Every cop instinct screamed at me to burst through that door, to confront her, to demand answers. But I couldn't move. "I miss you too." Another laugh, playful and flirtatious. "You know exactly what to say, don't you?" I'd heard enough. My legs carried me down the stairs and out the front door before my mind caught up. The morning air hit my face, cool and sharp. I got in my car and drove. Hours blurred together at work after that. I picked up extra shifts, volunteered for overnight surveillance, anything to stay away from home. When I did go back, I kept my distance. Isabella tried to kiss me one morning. I turned my head, letting her lips brush my cheek instead. "Everything okay?" she asked. I muttered something about being tired and left for work. Days turned into weeks. Our house felt like a prison, suffocating me with its silence. Some nights, after late shifts, I'd park my patrol car in the station lot and recline the seat. Better than going home to lie next to her, wondering if she was texting him while I pretended to sleep. The worst part, I still had no solid proof. Just that phone conversation, her changed behavior, and that damn lingering smell that even the new washing machine couldn't eliminate. But I knew. Every cop instinct, every gut feeling I'd relied on for 15 years told me what was happening. Isabella noticed the change in me. How could she not? I barely spoke to her anymore. When we did talk, it was about groceries or bills, nothing real. She'd reach for my hand sometimes, but I'd find an excuse to move away. The hurt in her eyes almost made me break, almost made me confront her, but I couldn't bring myself to hear her confirm what I already knew. So I worked more. Spent time with my partner. Other officers, anyone but her. They didn't ask questions when I showed up early or stayed late. Cops understand when another cop needs space. One night, lying in my patrol car, I stared at my phone. Isabella's contact photo smiled back at me, a picture from happier times. My thumb hovered over her name, wanting to text her to ask her why. Instead, I turned off the phone and closed my eyes, trying to sleep through another night away from home. I wasn't supposed to be home until midnight. The moment I opened the front door, that smell hit me, the same nauseating odor I'd been fighting with for months. The one I thought I'd solved with the new washing machine. My feet felt heavy as I moved through the house. Training kicked in, the same instincts that guided me through countless domestic disturbance calls. Only this time, I was walking through my own home, following that sickening scent growing stronger with each step toward our bedroom. The hallway seemed longer than usual. Family photos lined the walls, our wedding day, vacation snapshots, moments when we were genuinely happy. Or maybe I just thought we were. The carpet muffled my footsteps, a habit from years on patrol, though I wasn't consciously trying to be quiet. That smell. It was overwhelming now, mixing with a familiar cologne that definitely wasn't mine. My stomach churned. The same cologne I'd caught whiffs of on Isabella's clothes. The one I'd tried to convince myself was from her office. My hand rested on the bedroom doorknob, cold against my palm. The gold band on my finger caught the dim hallway light, a promise made years ago when things were simpler. My heart pounded against my ribs, blood rushing in my ears. Years of training taught me to keep calm in crisis situations, but nothing prepared me for this moment. I pushed the door open. I've seen my share of disturbing scenes as a cop, drug dens, violent crimes, dead bodies. But nothing prepared me for this moment. My feet froze at our bedroom doorway, my hand still gripping the doorknob. The afternoon sun filtered through our half-drawn curtains, casting long shadows across our marital bed. There they were, Isabella and George, their naked bodies intertwined on our sheets. But this wasn't just sex. They were covered head to toe in what looked like mud, or I couldn't even process what it was. The brown substance coated their skin, smeared across our white bedding, dripping onto the hardwood floor. That smell, that goddamn smell that had been driving me crazy for months, hit me like a physical force. It was everywhere, thick and oppressive, making my stomach heave. The same stench that lingered on her clothes that no amount of washing could remove. Now I knew why. Isabella's head snapped toward me, her eyes wide with shock. Those eyes I'd gazed into countless times now seemed alien, unrecognizable. Her dark hair was matted with the filth. Streaks of it ran down her face, across her breasts. Jorg was equally disgusting, his muscular frame slicked with the brown substance. My police training kicked in, my mind automatically cataloguing details like it was just another crime scene. But this was my bedroom. My wife. Our marriage bed. The family photos on the nightstand watched this desecration, pictures of our wedding day, our vacation in Cancun, Sunday barbecues with her family. The air felt thick, almost solid. Each breath brought that putrid smell deeper into my lungs. My throat constricted, fighting the urge to vomit. Years of maintaining composure at crime scenes crumbled in an instant. This wasn't just infidelity, this was something darker, more depraved than I could have imagined. I'd stood there, staring at them, my mind struggling to process the depraved scene before me. My fingers found my holster, a movement so familiar after years on the force that it felt like muscle memory. The weight of my service weapon settled into my palm, cold and heavy. The rage hit me like a freight train. White-hot fury coursed through my veins, obliterating every shred of reason and control I'd built over my career. Years of disciplined police training evaporated in an instant. My feet carried me forward. Jorg spotted the gun and scrambled backward, nearly falling off the bed. His eyes went wide, all that cocky confidence draining from his face. I pressed the barrel against his forehead, feeling the tremors running through his body. The words came out in a growl I barely recognized as my own voice. The barrel quivered against his skin as my hand shook with restrained violence. Jorg froze, his eyes darting between me and Isabella. A thin sheen of sweat broke out on his forehead where the gun pressed against it. The stench in the room grew stronger as his fear permeated the air. His hesitation only fueled my rage. My finger tightened on the trigger guard, and I pushed the barrel harder against his skull. I said, "Eat it." The command leaves my lips without emotion. George's eyes widened, darting between me and Isabella. The same eyes that must have undressed my wife countless times now filled with pure terror. Jorg slowly approached her and did as commanded while trembling with convulsions. I turned the gun toward her. "Now kiss him." "Mark, please." Her mascara runs down her cheeks in black streaks. "Kiss him." She crawls across the filthy sheets toward Jorg, her body trembling. Their lips meet in a forced, awkward kiss. The stench of what they've done fills the room, mixing with their fear and shame. The reaction is immediate. George retches first, followed quickly by Isabella. They couldn't hold it in. It was too disgusting even for them. I lower my weapon and turn away from the revolting scene. My boots leave prints in the carpet as I walk out, grabbing my keys from the hook by the door. Behind me, their retching continues, punctuated by Isabella's calling my name. I slide into my car and start the engine. 10 years of marriage destroyed by their filthy secret. I drive away from the house, leaving behind the life I thought we'd built together. I didn't step foot back into that house after that night. I made it clear, didn't I? Packed what little essentials I needed, left the keys on the kitchen table, and locked the door behind me. I rented a place closer to the station before the morning even broke. One of those dingy, single-bedroom apartments where the walls were thin, and the plumbing sounded like it was going to burst any second. But it didn't matter. It wasn't home, though. It didn't need to be. The next day was all business. I filed for divorce the moment the courthouse opened. Walked in there like I was clocking in for another shift at work, emotion buried somewhere deep. Clean. Efficient. My lawyer was a woman Jessica had recommended to me a year back when I helped her through some mess with her ex. It was an ironic full circle, really. I hadn't needed any of her services until now. Funny how that works out. Isabella tried, of course, calls, texts. The first couple of voicemails well sent emojis, but they quickly turned to hysterics. She even sent a video at some point, her teary face filling the screen, makeup streaked, saying she could explain, that she'd made a terrible mistake. Like I hadn't seen enough already. I blocked her. It was easy. I let her scream into the void because I had nothing left to give her. There was no explanation in the world that could erase what I'd seen, what they'd done. Everything she touched felt dirty now, like that smell that wouldn't wash out, no matter how much bleach I could have poured over it. The process moved fast. Too fast, really. People say divorce drags on years sometimes, but ours was clean. Paperwork filed, assets split 40-50, and I didn't make a peep. I didn't want the house. If it hadn't been sold within the month, I probably would have taken a match to it myself. She could have tried to negotiate, tried to drag it all out longer. But judging by how quickly her lawyer moved through things, it made me think she knew. He knew I wasn't going to budge, not after that. No emotion at all. Nothing clung to me worth holding on to. There were no pieces of us worth saving. Work's the only thing keeping me upright these days. I throw myself into every case, trying to shut out the rest. But it's not that easy. The second I step into that squad car, pull into the station, all eyes are on me, like they're waiting for something. Waiting to see if the cracks are showing. And they are. I'm not the same guy they used to know. The guy who used to laugh with them during lunch or swap stories about some wild call we answered last week. Nah, that guy's dead. Left him behind that night I watched everything I'd built crumble beneath me. Sleep? Almost non-existent. When I do manage to drift off, it's the same damn nightmare. That room, the smell. That smell. For me, it's that sickly sweet stench mixing with sweat. The way the room felt tight, suffocating. Isabel's face smeared with mascara, George's fear-filled eyes darting back and forth, desperate for a way out. They're in my head more than I'd like to admit. It's a bullet I've been dodging in the daylight, but nighttime, man, it catches up with you. I catch myself sometimes just zoning out, standing in the break room, mug of cold coffee in hand, and a voice snaps me back, asks if I'm all right. Always the same answer. Yeah, just tired. They buy it, or at least they act like they do. But I know they see through it. They hear the shift in me. My words are clipped now sharper. There's this simmering anger under the surface, like I'm waiting for an excuse to let it out. No one says it, but I see the glances. They know about the divorce. Heard about the reason too, I bet. I don't bother explaining anything to them. Don't owe them shit. The work helps though. It's too rhythmic to ignore, too demanding. The rules, procedures, staying sharp on patrol. It's the only time I'm not drowning in what happened. But even in the middle of some call that night creeps in, I'll be talking to a witness or taking a statement, and for a flash I see them. Isabella, George. My grip tightens around my pen or whatever's in my hand. The bitter taste comes back, brings the anger with it. I get through it, but just barely, and then it just sits at the back of my throat. You know what they don't tell you about betrayal? You can't undo it. You can walk away from the person, burn every reminder they left behind, but what they did stays inside you, like a stain you can't scrub off. That filth, it's part of who I am now. No matter how much I wish I could wash it away with a new apartment, back-to-back shifts, or endless cups of shitty station coffee. I don't let it slip though. If there's one thing the job's taught me, it's how to tuck your shit away, right where no one can reach. But I can feel it, this distance growing between me and everyone else. It's like, ever since that night I'm untouchable, wrapped up in a layer so thick no one can get through. God help anyone who tries. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed the story, remember to like, subscribe, and comment on the video for more stories like this. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. If you have any similar stories to share, leave them in the comments and we'll make sure to bring them to life. Thanks for watching.